Founding Fathers, Jason Sipple here to help you understand who's in control of your money. Is it you or is it someone else? We're trying to, with Founding Fathers, to keep it simple with Sipple. We want to make sure that you understand the game you're playing because Einstein said the first thing is you have to understand the rules of the game and then play better than anyone else. So I'm going to show you some historical figures today. I'm going to show you the history of banking. I'm going to talk to you about how you learn, how we each individually learn. There's many kinds of intelligences, but I'm going to walk you through how you learn. And then I'm going to break down the illustration designs and how we design a specially engineered, cash-rich, whole life policy for you to solve either the problem that is in front of you and or the opportunity. Everything's an and when you start thinking abundantly. So again, Founding Fathers is here to serve you. It's here to help you with your education. I want to teach you how to fish. I have no desire to fish for you, but I want you to learn how to fish so you can take back control of your finances. Stop giving up control. Stop assuming the risk, because that is what's costing 95% of Americans their financial freedom. So let's kick this off. We're going to talk about how designing your bank simplified. Now, some of you, the engineers, the spreadsheet wizards, you're going to want me to break stuff down and show you calculations. And we'll do that later. We'll do some advanced training. This is, again, making it simple with Sipple. So let's jump in. Let's have some fun. I want you to tell me what's your way of learning. Do you learn through physical activity? Pop it in the chat. Do you learn through memorization? Do you learn from kinesthetically from doing the thing? How do you learn? How do you best learn? I want you to really start telling yourself the truth, and we're going to talk about that as well. So let's jump this off. A simple history of money and banking. First, we started off way back in the ancient times, BC, with barter, with the system that I'm going to grow some wheat, you're going to have some sheep, and we're going to need things from each other. So we're going to exchange. Because remember, what is money? Money is nothing more than a means of exchange. With that, the barter system went on for centuries. Centuries of the barter system. And then at some point, someone decided, you know, I don't always want to trade my milk, my sheep milk, or my meat for wheat or corn or for whatever it was that they wanted. They're like, I want something that's valuable to everyone. And they landed on God's money. And God's money is precious metals. That's your gold and your silver, which is a nice hedge against everything that's happening in the world, but not something that you're going to spend and use as actual money. But back then, back in after the barter system, after ancient times, the next thing in banking was precious metals. And from precious metals, we went into promissory notes, which that meant that someone was tired of carrying their gold across the state, across the country, across wherever they were from, and then bringing that to somebody going here. So now the metalsmiths that had the gold and silver that kind of started the system, here's a receipt with a claim to this gold. And so then you could go trade it. And that's where the banking system was born, because someone's like, I have this receipt that's as valuable as gold, and now I'm going to trade it. But I don't really think I'm going to go back and get that piece of gold right away. So you can do additional receipts against that. And all of a sudden, we have, we go from having medieval times to doing promissory notes to the birth in the 17th century of the fractional banking system that we're in today, where money is just created like that out of thin air. And when we start understanding money is nothing more than a tool and a resource, you can start asking yourself, well, if the banks have been doing this since the 1600s, why don't I learn how to do this? Remember, Founding Fathers is here to support you on your journey by helping you build that stable financial literacy and foundation that you can expand your wealth on and create generational legacy. And I'm going to talk to you almost the last slide on what are the 5 basic rules of the infinite banking concept. I like to teach, and everything is always going to tie back because it's better with the infinite banking concept. So, like Robert Kiyosaki famously said, I love, love, love this quote. There are two primary money problems in the world. A, you either don't have it or you have it and you just don't know what to do with that money that you do have. That's genius. That is why 95% of Americans are retiring and they're not financially stable because they have money, they make plenty of money, they just don't know where their money's going. And someone else, because of the system, remember, from the 1600s until now, that's a long time, folks. And we are taught to do what? We work hard. We work, and pop this in the chat for me. We work hard. And when we get paid, where does that money go first? Now, some of you are instantly thinking, my mortgage, my car payment, to my kids, to food. No, that's not first. You're not paying for everything in cash. Most likely, your money goes into the bank. And now the bank understands the laws of nature. The laws of nature will never change. That's why they are laws. They are ruthlessly, relentlessly accurate. Think about it. You don't drink or eat fish from a stale pond. If you don't move your body, your blood doesn't move. And what happens? We start breaking down. We start getting sores. We start getting disease. Everything has to stay in motion. And the banks are geniuses at this. And if we understand that success leaves clues, well, then we already know the answer, don't we? And you're going to think, Jason, I've heard this before. This is, why doesn't everybody do this? That's the question I asked myself when I first read Nelson's Becoming Your Own Banker. I got mad and I said, damn it, why doesn't every American do this? And it lit a fire under me that I've never had in my first 46 years of life. So let's go to the next thing. So all of us are wearing many hats. I've talked to some really, really wealthy folks lately, people owning their Aston Martins, buying Ferraris for $250,000 in cash. And what I bring to you in this webinar, what I bring to you with the Founding Fathers is my knowledge of 2,000 plus, probably actually 10,000 plus calls over the last 10 years with the American working people and all different classes, all different backgrounds, and bringing to you the most common problems and the most common misperceptions and making that simple for you. So think, when I asked the guy who's helping me tremendously, he's one of my who's, and I understand he has an Aston Martin, he has a 7-figure business. And I said, brother, you basically are helping me teach this to people. Why aren't you practicing it? And he was like, you know why? Because when it was presented to me, it was confusing. It seemed complicated. So the mission of Founding Fathers is to uncomplicate that, to make it simple. I want you to think right now, pop it in the chat. How many hats do you wear? Look at the list I put there. Are you doing other ones? Like I know personally, I am a son, I am a father, I am a spouse, I am an employer, I am a partner, I am a martial artist, I am an artist, I'm a creative, a provider, a protector. I'm all of those things. And I added a new hat in the last 2 years of being a banker. This is why I want you to think about this for a second. Ask yourself, what is the skill that is going to change my life the most? If you think about what Robert Kiyosaki said, there's two problems with money. You either don't have it or you have it and you have no idea what to do with it. So I always say there's two businesses we all need to be in. Number one, the business of making money. Once you can make money, once you've given yourself that certainty that you're the provider, you're the protector as a father, a spouse, then the next thing is, how do I protect my money? How do I multiply that money in a safe way, in a fiscally responsible way? I am uber conservative. My Niners are in the Super Bowl for the first time that they're going to win since 1995. I'm calling it right here today. They're going to win, factually, for the first time. I've been a fan since 1981. And I'm telling you, I have that much certainty that this is going to happen on Super Bowl Sunday. But I am still not going to put $1 on that game because I am conservative. I don't like to gamble. I want to know what's happening with my money. And I want to teach you how, with absolute certainty, you can give yourself guarantees and leverage that money like the banks do. So let's move on. let's go and talk about the importance of meeting yourself where you are at now. All progress begins with being honest with ourselves. We have to be honest with ourselves. So when I'm talking to you in the future, I'm going to ask you, how are things going? What has life been like for you? How is your job, or how is what you are doing, your passion, treating you? What's working? What's not working? What is that big ultimate vision? Where are you going the next 5 years, the next 10 years? And how are we going to bring that back to now, today, to the micro, the macro to the micro? And this is happening on many levels. And this is why it gets complicated for people. But if we understand where we're at financially, are we telling ourselves the truth? Are we really looking at, are we being responsible? There's two pains in life. You either have the pain of discipline, or what? Pop in the chat. What do you think the other pain is? No, it's not marriage. I'm sorry. I get that one all the time. It's not the pain of marriage. The second, that is a blessing most of the time. It is the pain of regret. That is the second pain. And then from there, we have to look at, right, from a financial standpoint, where are we? How honest are we being with ourselves? Are we really looking at our sheet, which is showing us our assets and our debts? Are we really looking at how much are we paying ourselves? Are we paying ourselves first? Are we following the commandments? Second, emotionally, how do we feel about money? If you're treating your money like it's your weird uncle or that relative that no one will talk about, well, guess what? Your money's going to feel that, and it's going to reject you. It's going to be like, hold up. I can't flow into your life. I can't move with you. I can't be like water and love on you. I can't love you if you don't love me. It's okay. It's not a sin. Say it with me. I love money, and money loves me. Okay? Educationally, what have you been taught? What are you reading? What are you feeding that big brain you have? What are you teaching yourself on a knowledge basis? And then we go down to, how do you learn? This is something that I got from Second Chance from Robert Kiyosaki. I just heard it. I heard how he teaches, how he's been teaching financial education since the 80s. And I was like, that makes the most sense. That's why the game cash flow is so brilliant. Because if you look, practice doing is 75%. It's it's got stickiness. It's something that is going to help you learn even faster. And that's why I tell folks, if you're practicing the infinite banking concept, I have people tell me, I've watched 150 videos and read every book. I know everything. And I say, oh yeah? If you know everything, then are you practicing? No, because, and it's like, you don't know anything. I'm sorry. I'm going to firmly, respectfully disagree with you. You know jack. You don't know anything until you do it. You can't fail forward. You can't make progress unless you do the thing. And the faster you get comfortable with failing, the faster you are comfortable being uncomfortable, the faster you're going to get everything you want in life. And the more is going to flow to you because you're not blocking. You don't have all these rules. So if we look at the cone of learning, what I want for you today is I want you to hear me. I want you to take what I'm saying and go research on your own. What has resonated with you? What has made you curious? And go out and practice it. Go out and look at it. And remember, we're here because Founding Fathers is going to teach you how to make the infinite banking concept simpler. And then we're going to help empower you to apply it. If you're here because you're either curious or you want to take your education to that next level. So let's go on. We're going to look. Now, this is the simplest way I could design this and think about this. I got this little toy here, and we're going to talk about how we design, how your specially engineered, cash-rich whole life is designed. Most people think it's a mystery. Most people think that it's something that only a few people can do. And you know why they're right? Because most people aren't out there thinking, how can I help you? They're thinking, what's in it for me? And that's where the problem comes. If we look at the biggest money makers when it comes to insurance, it's going to be term insurance, and then it's going to be whole life that's not specially designed, or index universal life. It's going to be something that is for the death benefit, for that one day eventually. But guess what? I've already said it. Our need for banking, our need for finance is our biggest need in our life. As long as we're living here in the greatest country in the world, I live in the greatest state in the world, in Florida, then you're going to need to understand banking. And so I'm going to empower you. I'm going to give you this quick lesson. That's a couple slides, and you're going to get to the end. You're going to say, that's it, Jason? That was so easy. Think about the NASA rocket or SpaceX or whatever rocket you want to think about. Get that picture in your head. Okay, I want you to visualize it. I want you to think about it. What's it look like? You have the big giant cylinder that some of you might think is a big rocket booster, because I used to think that's what it was. But that big orange thing, that is the rocket fuel. And then you have your ship. You have your shuttle. That's the rocket, okay? And on the sides, you have what strapped to it? You have some boosters. And what do the boosters do? They help that rocket launch faster, reach maximum velocity, and break free of what? The atmosphere. So if we take our specially engineered whole life and we think about this, and you guys can write this down, the first thing that we're concerned with is, what is the chassis? What is the vehicle? What is the thing? If you think about a Ford pickup truck, whether it's a Raptor, whether it's a F-150 or an F-250, they're built on the same frame. Everything that we design with all 5 of our mutually owned, dividend paying, A+ rated or better companies, and we're not beholden to any single carrier, we're out there looking for what is going to allow us to engineer this for you, with whole life being the rocket. That is your base. That is the smaller part of your design. Unless you're a kid, it might switch. But the majority of the time, that is your smaller portion. That's the whole life. Your cash value, the part that gives you the capabilities of banking, that is the rocket boosters that's put on the side. And now we're going to talk about, like in the Nelson model, in a 60-40, I know that's a little bit more advanced. That is something that you're expecting to see some charts and diagrams. But just think, when it was first taught to us, when Nelson Nash brought this and made it accessible for everyone, not just the wealthiest families, not just the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Morgans, the Stanleys, Walt Disney, and even Ray Kroc, right? When that was first brought to us, the 60-40 gave you the perfect balance. It was the perfect balance of cash value, having access to 60% right away. And then as that grows, as that uninterrupted compounding interest, as your rocket ship, that PUA and that whole life reach velocity, then we're going to look at what happens next. So I want you to write down 3 numbers, 1, 2, 3 in your notebook. Under number 2, I want you to draw a horizontal line that looks just like this. This is me demystifying, like I promised this 19 minutes ago, that I would demystify whole life and how complex it is. And I'm going to talk to you with some simple numbers. I'm going to give you some examples based on a $10,000 a year premium deposit. And I would ask you, before I say that, do you agree that the wealthy have more choices? Pop it in the chat. It's a yes or no answer. Nothing I say, remember, simple with Sipple, is going to be a trick question. I'm not trying to be smarter than anyone. I want you to honestly answer the question. Do you believe the wealthy have more choices? Unless you're a contrarian, you're most likely saying, yes, Jason, I raised my hand. That makes sense. I'm on board with that. I'd say, great. Well, let me tell you, one of the ways you have more choices is in the design and how you pay your premium deposits. Remember, we're making deposits into your banking system. We're just following the very successful, since the 16th century, example that the banks, that fractional banking has set up for us. And we're going to do it with a specially engineered cash-rich whole life policy that's designed to solve whatever it is and meet you wherever you're at on your financial journey. Whether you're in debt, whether you're buying a new car, sending your kids to college, or you're at the point that you're going to put that money in motion and have those little green men go to work for you. Because why? Money ain't got to sleep, y'all. Money doesn't have to sleep. So in your 1, 2, 3, number 1, you're going to write PUA, paid up additions. This is some of the secret sauce. This is the magic. This is where in Nelson's example of a 60% going to number one, that's your cash. In year one, I didn't write this down, so you can write it down, pop questions in the chat, but in year one, in a 60-40, if you're healthy, you're gonna have access to 58 cents of every dollar. Year two, it's about 75 cents of every dollar. Year three, you're at 90 cents of every dollar. By year four, you have access to every dollar you're putting in, dollar for dollar. You put in a dollar, you can borrow against that dollar and borrow a dollar out and use it. So now you got the money growing in your left hand and that same money being used in the right hand. It's kind of like magic, isn't it? And finally, we get to year five. I call it the efficiency point. My buddy Joe calls it the cash tree point. And Hannah, my partner Hannah, calls it the magic moment. No matter how you want to talk about it, then you're able to say, okay, at that point, every dollar I put into this machine gives me more than a dollar I can use. It's a pretty magical moment. And now number two of our premium deposit, the second part of that specially engineered policy for you is the base. That's the rocket. Remember, we got the rocket boosters are strapped to the side. That's your paid up additions. And now you have the base, and that's your whole life. Now that base is your long-term growth. Your base is your uninterrupted compounding interest over the years. Your base is why in year 10 or 11, you're typically going to be putting $1 in and being able to borrow out $2 and change, depending on the design. And finally, number three is optional. Number three is if you're solving a short-term problem or you got lazy money sitting in the bank, you got money that isn't doing anything for you, and the banks don't even keep their money in the banks. The banks keep their money where? Ask Uncle Google. Ask him, where do the banks keep their money? Where have the banks quadrupled the money that they have put into this one vehicle since 2013? And the answer is into this specially engineered cash-rich whole life. So number three is an additional rocket booster. If we went back a slide, remember your rocket, remember the fuel tank, the rocket boosters are on the side, right? We're just taking another rocket booster and strapping it on there. I'm going to give you another story to keep helping you understand what that additional thing is. But this is when you hear my teammates, you hear my partners, Chris Noggle, breaking down and calling things the Slayer, the Rock, high early cash value. All we're talking about there is a dump-in, is a one-time cash infusion. It's adding lighter fluid or another rocket booster to this engineered policy that gives you 80 to 90% access to that capital faster to solve your problem faster. And sometimes it makes sense to do that, and sometimes it doesn't. It depends, which is our favorite answer on Ask Me Anything. Now we're going to look at the rocket ship. So remember, I talked about taking off, hitting maximum velocity, and going out into the atmosphere. When it hits the atmosphere, and that usually takes, well, it's seconds in real life, but in the land of our specially engineered whole life, it takes about 10 years. It hits that efficiency point or that cash tree point, and all of a sudden, your rocket boosters are falling back, and they're coming back now. SpaceX are coming back and landing right on the launch pad over in Cape Canaveral. Those rocket boosters fall off and they return safely because now your base has enough velocity that it's growing uninterrupted, compounding on its own because it's reached that velocity, no longer need boosters. And because of how the government put restrictions on it in 88, that helps us make sure that we will never have you in partnership with the government. You don't want to have Uncle Sam going and waiting and going like, hey, you're retired now. I need my cut. I need my cut. Remember, when do we want to pay taxes, on the seed or on the harvest? Always on the seed. Now that we've done that, I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about your rocket boosters. So with the rocket boosters, a story I like to tell is, imagine you've got your friends and family over and they've come over to have a meal with you. You're going to cook some shrimp, some lobster, some steak. It is going to be an extravaganza. You're so excited. You haven't seen these folks for a long time. If you're like me, I'm a little bit chatty, and I'm going to walk around and I'm going to find out how everyone's doing. I want to know what you're up to, how things been, what's going on, what are you excited about? And I'm probably not going to be hungry because I've eaten before you came over. I've snacked getting stuff set up. And now I look around, right? Imagine yourself doing the same thing. And you're like, dang, why is everybody looking at me like they're going to kill me? They got some hangry eyes, man. They're all looking at me like they're coming for me. And I'm like, they're starving. It's an hour and a half past when I said I was going to make the food. So now I got my charcoal grill. It's not hot. You know, we don't have the Kingsford or whatever charcoal that is that's lighting itself. We just have regular old charcoal. So I'm lighting it up and it's taking a long time. So I'm a genius. I'm a man. I'm going to do what? I'm going to do something kind of foolish. I'm going to grab the lighter fluid. I'm going to spray it on there. And all of a sudden I go from no fire to bonfire. In that moment, I'm like, wow, this thing is hot. That is what happens with the high early cash value. And again, it depends, but I'm just telling you from a design standpoint, there's only 3 parts. There's other little variables, but those are the 3 main parts that you need to understand with how things work when we're engineering this vehicle to help you take back control of your money. Remember, all we're looking to do is shift the control from the banks back to the individual, back to a privatized system that is going to give you so much more protection and guarantees for every need you need in your life. He who feeds the hunger in the world is the richest person. I read that last night when I was looking up bonfires. I'm like, that is brilliant. The world is truly about how do we solve as many problems for other people. So pop any questions you have in the chat. I'm going to go on and tell you next, what are Nelson Nash's 5 rules to follow to be a successful infinite banking professional? To add that hat, remember all the hats we're wearing? What is that hat? Nelson Nash's 5 laws for banking are easy. Number 1, remember, he was a forester. So he thought long term. And long term for some of us is like, what am I going to eat next Saturday? Where am I going next Saturday, next month? No, I'm talking about 50, 70, 100, 150 years. How long does it take a tree, a plot of trees to grow? And then we're harvesting them, and then we're planting a new seed. This is what the wealth is. This is the generational wealth piece. So number 1 is thinking long term. Remember I said, what is your vision 10 years from now? What's your vision 20, 30 years from now? And how do we bring that back to today? Today, because with all of the different inputs we have coming in, we need to see progress, because progress is what equals happiness. Number 2 is don't be afraid to capitalize. All this means is, folks, we got to follow the 10 commandments. And what is the first commandment? The first commandment is love who? Love God, whoever you believe in, with all your heart, mind, and soul. Number 2 says love thy neighbor like thyself, which implies we have to love ourselves a little bit more. In the land of the United States, we are factually consumers, which means we are not owners, which I believe comes from not loving and respecting ourselves enough. The big, bold statement, but I believe that there is a ton of truth in that. And if you think on it, I think you'll agree with me. Love yourself a little bit more, capitalize, which is your premium deposits. Pay yourself first. Stop paying everybody else, the house man, the car man, the mortgage man, the grocery man, all of the other men and women that you're paying. Pay yourself before them. Number 3 is funny. It's a don't steal the peas, which just simply, that's what sticks in your head, but it just simply means that if you're growing your business, you're not going to steal from your business. I could tell you a long story here, but in respect of your time, I'm not going to. So number 4 is we only want to use the banks for the convenience of their storage. We don't want to be taking loans from the banks. We don't want to be paying the banks interest or any of those things. We want to be the ones that are the owners telling the banks what they're going to do with the money. Like if we want to collateralize our money and borrow from the bank at a smaller percentage because we're the ones negotiating and in a power position because of our infinite banking concept that we've applied, remember, you don't know it unless you're applying it. And finally, the bonus is you're going to rethink your thinking. If you can use this to pay off your debt, if you can use this for your kids' college fund, if you can use this to supplement retirement, what else can you use this for? Well, anything, but that's up to you. So we're always going to rethink our thinking. So founding fathers, again, we're here always to educate you first, to meet you where you're at, and to make sure that you have all of the information that you could possibly want, need, or want to understand so you can make the best decisions for you and your family. Again, I appreciate you being one of the few, one of the 5%. I am not confused by the fact that the majority of people aren't here at 3 o'clock on a Thursday to learn about the history of banking, to learn about how we learn, to learn about how simple infinite banking truly is. It's simple, but I'm not telling you it's easy because it's such a paradigm shift that you're instantly going to go, whoa, danger, too good to be true. So talk to the professionals, talk to people like us who have been implementing this in our lives. All we're doing is we solve our problems, and now we can turn around and stick our hand out and solve your problem. So if you want to know more, if you want to see my free money multiplier webinar, go to jasonsipple.com, sign up there for a conversation with me, subscribe, bang that button, make it turn blue, subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm going to be putting out new content every week. There's going to be tons of learning, and we'll keep keeping it simple with Sipple. Thank you for being here. I really enjoyed our time together. You're incredible. Give yourself permission to succeed. Until the next time, I'll see you soon.